You've selected the right show to listen to in order to become the best salesperson you can be. We literally listen to actual in-home sales presentations of salesmen at all different levels to show you precisely how to close more deals and what to avoid. I'm your host, Alex Mark. I built a sales-based home improvement company from $0 to $20 million in 2 years and then sold it to private equity. And I'm here to help you become the best salesperson you can be and put more money in your pocket. Welcome back to a very special episode of the First Call Closer podcast. Today, we have two very special guests. I think we're going to call this episode Rillaception because as everyone knows listening to this, we use Rilla to make this podcast work. Really, it's powered by Rilla, you could say in a sense, because without it, we wouldn't have a podcast. We truly use Rilla to get all of the recordings you guys hear on these podcasts every day. And today we are joined by the CEO and founder of Rilla himself, Sebastian. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. That's the quietest I've ever heard you. But no, so those of you that don't know what Rilla is, which I don't know how you have listened to this podcast and don't know, but it's the leading speech analytics software in the industry geared towards home improvement and home services. And we live, breathe it here. So really excited today to have Rilla. Hear how Rilla coaches on Rilla. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? How Rilla coaches on Rilla because they don't only make the software, but what I think is really cool, they use it themselves in their business. So what we're going to hear today is an actual recording of Matt over here. Didn't forget about you. Welcome, Matt, who is the current sales manager or sales director for Rilla. But before that, sold Rilla for the first 8 months. And before we jumped on, Sebastian was telling me that you kind of sucked your first 3-4 weeks.
Yeah,
like you were really bad. You came from selling Angie's. Yeah, bad word maybe in this industry a little bit, but don't hate him too much. He joined a better company. But you went from selling Angie to come over to Rilla and didn't find much success early on. So I kind of want to start there and have Sebastian talk a little bit about what those early times looked like and how you went from not being able to sell anything to the sales director and presumably you figured it out.
Yeah. So, I'm happy to talk about it. Matt's gonna have PTSD. He's just gonna trigger the PTSD from the early days. So yeah. Hi guys, and thank you for having us here, Alex. This is so fun. So I'm the CEO and founder of Rilla. As you mentioned, Matt was our first sales hire ever. I was the first salesperson at Rilla. I sold Rilla myself. I sold the first few $1 million myself, and then we hired Matt. One of our challenges in building out our sales team, and this is going to resonate with some home improvement contractors, it was really difficult for me to hire from the industry, to hire from the software industry, because what in tech sales, I realized that a lot of software salespeople are very lazy. Like in the last decade of software sales, a B2B startup that would sell software to other businesses, hiring salespeople was kind of like spending money on Google ads. So all these startups would go out, raise these massive rounds of funding, throw all their money at sales. And so what you ended up having was a bunch of salespeople sitting around doing not much of anything because the company could only actually generate pipeline for for them to have a demo a week. Imagine you have a sales team where your sales staff is only doing one call a week.
You better sell it.
Yeah, and not only you better sell it, but the rest of the time, what are they going to do? They're going to get super lazy. And in software sales, the sales cycles are like 3 to 6 months long. So it's very easy to generate excuses, to generate like, hey, I'm not closing, but it's not me. It's like, the market, whatever it is, right? And so when I was interviewing, I interviewed like 100 plus salespeople from the industry, from really top sales companies. And I was like, all these people suck. They're so lazy. I would ask them, like, one of the questions in my interviews are like, how long do you tell me about your day? Because I'm trying to figure out how long do you work? Like, how many hours of work do you put in a day? Yeah. And these people were putting in like 4 hours. And it was like, I put in an honest day's worth of work. I wake up at like 10 a.m., go to yoga class and go drink my little green juice. And then I'm out there selling at 3 p.m., man. Then it's time for happy hour at 5. And I'm like, what the hell are we talking about, man? So I said, screw that. I don't want to hire lazy people in my company. I want to hire hardworking people that are really driven, that are going to be able to succeed here, because I cannot work with lazy people. So I said, I'm going to find people outside of this industry, and maybe if they've sold to home improvement contractors before, maybe they'll get at least a sense of who the customer is. I met Matt, right? Matt used to work at Angie. This guy, he told me about his, I was like, tell me about your day. He's like, yeah, man, I wake up at like, 3 a.m. in the morning, I start getting leads. And then he kept doing, and I was like, hey, did you say you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning? I was like, why do you wake up at 3 a.m.? I was like, yeah, that's when the websites go live. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, man, you got to get the leads from Andy. So that's when like GoDaddy, whatever, the domains, they come out. So all the new contractors, that's when all the new contractors go live with their website because that's when they release it.
Oh, wow.
And so, and he was like literally getting up so early in the morning so he could prep his day so he could start dialing at like 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, wow. And he would do that from like literally 3 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I was like, okay, I like this guy. I hired him knowing full well that he'd never done software sales. Like in terms of like, he'd always saw that Angie, you sell on the phone, right? Anybody who's familiar with Angie, you're going to get a call, 50-minute, close. So the software sale, when you're selling on Zoom, because we sell on Zoom, is a little bit different. You're on camera. It's a longer sales cycle a little bit. But I said, it's probably easier for me to train Matt, who's a super hard worker, who's used to a very fast sales cycle, who's used to selling a lot, to train him on how to do a slightly longer sales cycle of like a week long. We sell deals in Rilla about a week, which is really fast for software sales.
Absolutely.
It's probably easier for me to train somebody like Matt than train one of these lazy people who's used to like 6-month sales cycles to train him to sell fast and hard.
100%.
And I hired Matt, knowing full well he was going to suck really bad. And I knew that. But one of the principles at Rilla is we try to operate like a high-speed reinforcement learner. A reinforcement learner is a machine learning algorithm that it's not smart, it's not talented, but it is very effective. And because what it does is it just tries to play a game and beat it, and it doesn't know what it's doing at all, and it just fails, right? And you see OpenAI, ChatGPT, all of these AI algorithms that we know today, they're not very, they don't actually have IQ, like intelligence. Right. But what they're very good at is trying a lot of things and failing really fast because it's a computer, so it can try a bunch of things at once. So it tries a million times. So once you see it the first few times of playing a game, it sucks, it dies, it just like an idiot. But then after the millionth time of playing the game, it knows exactly what not to do. And it follows the most effective path to win, and it becomes unbeatable, and it beats the best human players. And so when Matt started, it was his early stages of the reinforcement. I knew that. That's what I wanted. I was like, I'm going to coach you. Early on, he literally didn't close anything for the first 2 weeks. He was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Matt would, at the time, it was only me selling Rilla at the time, and then I brought in Matt. So Matt was taking the bulk of our demos, right? And I was fine with it. I was like, yeah. Luckily, I have a sales training tool that allowed me to go and watch every one of his calls. So I was like, the way we're going to do it, we're going to give you the smaller deals. I'm going to take the big deals. You're going to take the smaller deals. Yeah. You're going to learn. You're going to get your reps in, and we're going to get your reinforcement learner cranking. He would start the day, come into the office. He's still the first person in the office. He comes in like 6 a.m. in the morning, 7 a.m. in the morning. And he would just do demos from like 8 to 6. He was just doing demos. And after 6, he would do his follow-up. At 8, or sometimes at 10, that's when he started training with me because I was also busy during the day. 100%. So like at 8 o'clock, 10 p.m. at night, that's when we start training and we do all of our call reviews. We would review every single one of his calls on Rilla. And we would sit down there and do what we're about to do live today. We would literally do that every single day. It was to the point like we work on Sundays at Rilla. We were like on a Sunday at 11 or 12 a.m., on a Sunday, his girlfriend's like, what the hell are you doing, man? You're out there in the streets. Like, you think I'm a fool, man? I know what you're doing. You think I believe you're working? Man, literally, it's like, hey, man, like, can I take a picture right quick? Takes a picture, sends it to her, like, I'm training right now because I need
still
to get
working.
Going. And what's so funny is he thought that I was so mad at him because every time we would review the calls, I would say, like, yeah, you're screwing up here, like 50 comments per call. Like, everything. I would just, like, completely roast him. And he thought I was mad at him, like he was gonna get fired. I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. You are doing so well because every day I would see him improving on the thing that I told. A little bit better every time. So first I worked with him on discovery, then I worked with him on the demo, then I worked with him on Q&A, then I worked with him in closing. And he was really nervous. He was like, I'm not closing anything. How is this guy? He's coming from a place that they yell at you if you don't close that one deal. You know what I mean? Right. And I was like, no, dude, we're doing so great because I know where it's going. I like to look at people's slopes, not their intercepts, right? So it was like the slope was really high. Third week on Rilla, while he was working at Rilla, the last week of the month, he closed. It was like the last 4 days of the month, he closed $100,000. after not having, I literally had to train him from the ground up.
Wow.
Second month, he closed $130,000 of annual recurring revenue, which is very hard in software sales.
Yeah, that's not an insignificant amount.
No, so that's because it's annual recurring because you pay a
Mm-hmm.
year after year. Third month, he closes like $200,000 of annual recurring revenue. Fourth month, he closed $300,000. Fifth month, he started closing 400, and he got himself into a range of $400,000, $500,000 in 8 months, including ramp time. In software sales, you typically give a rep 3 to 6 months to ramp up. Ramp up means that's training. They're not carrying quota. You just let them ramp up. He started in April, ramping up 3 weeks, started selling. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Including ramp time, Matt closed in 8 months because then he got promoted to sales managers. In 8 months with Rilla, he closed like 2.7, almost $2.8 million of annual recurring revenue, which is in 8 months more than what 95% of software salespeople close in a year. Right?
Dude, that's incredible.
So
That's
to be,
awesome.
and he was on track. And remember, this is ramp time. So at that stage, he was already at the 400, 500K a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was already on track to be hitting $7 million, $8 million of annual recurring revenue by April, right? And then he was like, put me up as sales manager. He's one of our top performers, super high close. I mean, in home improvement, I've only heard of very few companies that can get a rep to close $5 million and above.
It's not many. They're few
Yeah.
and far between. They're happy with $1.5 million. $2 million is considered really good. So
Yes.
to do that for reoccurring revenue, that's incredible. Matt, I got to ask, hearing all of that and knowing all of that, what would you say is the main thing that made that possible to go from a untraditional 3 weeks to being able to then start selling out of the gate and just sell over $2.8 million in a short period of time?
Yeah, Alex, that's a great question. And I'd say a couple of things. One is the insane amount of work, like the ruthless work ethic working alongside Sebastian, who's obviously the expert here, and just putting in those hours and hours and hours and realizing, how much can actually get done. Right. And I didn't necessarily see it. What's interesting is I didn't really feel it in the beginning that I was progressing. Cause like Sebastian was saying, I was always like, I'm messing up. You're going to fire me? Are you going to do this? Right. And to realize, and then reflecting a few months down the road, I started reflecting. It's like, wow, I really am, now I can see like the significant improvement from when I started. Right. So I think it was kind of just like the amount of work coupled with the training. Obviously through Rilla, I was able to watch my own film tape and everything, and just kind of really embracing the aspect of staying detached from the outcome of the process, which I think is huge, and staying within the process, right? Being like, okay, I really started to internalize, okay, if I fail over and over again, I am improving, right? And people around me, like Sebastian, are telling me I'm improving, and I'm also seeing that reflected in my income. So it was kind of just like staying detached from the sale or the outcome, and really just diving in and immersing myself in the process that was built around and having faith that I would continue to improve.
I think there's a lot of similarities even that with what we typically see, and with home improvement, people in the home selling, that could be learned from that. It's typically what I see with people we work with is the 90-day ramp time is what they expect for their home improvement reps. They'll give them 90 days. They'll let them burn those 90 days worth of leads. And if they don't work, they'll wash them out and let it go. And those reps, their mentality is, I'll just learn by doing over and over and over again. But they don't take the time to look back at what they did on the previous appointment, which I think sounds like what you did that allowed you to accelerate that process and make it go so much quicker. Is you didn't just say, okay, that one's done, I'll learn from the next one. You went through your day, but then you reviewed that entire day and understood how you could make it better. And that's really how you were able to accelerate. And I think if home improvement reps did the same thing, they really embraced that out of their training, they could probably take that 90 days and turn it into 2-3 weeks and really be high performing reps.
Exactly.
The only thing that he said that I think is super critical to what we've done is just the process. And like we had Nick Saban at a conference the other day, and he talked about, I didn't know much about Nick Saban. I'm not from Alabama, and I'm not American even. so we had Nick Saban talking about how he coached people at Bama, and one of his biggest things is like, I do not coach for an outcome. I really don't care about winning or losing. I care about you guys following my process. And what that allows you to do when you have people who are failing on the outcome, but you can see that the process is getting there, that they're doing the things the right way, the way they're supposed to be. It allows you to be like, no, I can still put resources and invest in you, even though the outcome's not there yet.
Right.
It allows you to find diamonds in the rough. The other way, on the other end, one of my top guys, Amir, he's our top performer. He's naturally gifted at sales. He's just so, we hired him. I hired him literally on the spot because he made me laugh so much on the call because he's so goofy and he's so personable. People love him. He's so goofy and he's so funny. His first few calls on Rilla, I said to him, you're going to close this, okay? You're going to close this. This is the worst call I've ever seen in my life, just so you understand that. You're going to close it.
But it was bad.
I don't want you to get any ideas. So I'm not giving you kudos. I'm telling you, you suck at this right now. And I don't want you to get ideas that this was good because this was not. They're going to buy from you because they like you and because they like the product.
But most people won't buy just because they like you.
You just did horrible. And so what it allows you to, Nick Saban, he had a time when his players were winning the game by like 47 points in the fourth quarter. So they were just kicking the other team's ass. They start getting sloppy, getting comfortable. Nick Saban starts screaming. Be like, what the hell is wrong with you? We're playing football out here, and you guys got your hands in your ass. Let's start playing ball, man. Because he was getting upset. And people were like, there he goes, Coach Saban. Because for him, it was like, you guys need to have a level of excellence, right? Mm-hmm. On both ends, right? So if you really focus to the process as a home improvement company, and you can really coach to the process and making sure your people are following up, then you're going to get really repeatable results.
The results will come if you follow the process.
The results will take care of themselves. Yep. So that's another thing. And we still follow that to this day at Rilla.
Yeah, no, that's super, super key. Well, I want to dive into this recording. We're going to do this a little bit more unique than anyone. If you've listened to these episodes before, typically it's me controlling the Rilla, going through segments. I'm going to do some of that, but I also asked Sebastian, as probably the biggest Rilla power user there is, to take the driver's seat a little bit here as well and coach like he would coach normally, so we can see an example of what that would look like. So I don't know, Sebastian, you want to kind of take it away and do some coaching on this specific appointment? And we'll make sure we edit out the audio just to protect the identities and all that, like we always do. But
okay, can I say the name of the company or no?
I don't. Do you think they'll care? I don't know.
I don't.
That's
think
up to you
care.
guys.
I don't think they'll care.
Yeah, cool. Go for it.
So this is a call between Matt and Windows Direct USA. This call did end up in a sale, right? This call did end up in a sale. But
not on the first call.
Not on the first call. It did not end up in a sale in the first call. And this is Matt's November, like right on the tail end of when we actually promoted him to sales manager. So this is for the most part a great call.
So, he did a good job.
But there are some things. So, and we're going to be putting the screen here so that people can follow. The first thing I do when I come to Rilla is I try to look at the talk metrics. And from the first view here, I can see that Matt's talk metrics are generally really good. So his talk ratio is 62%. We like to keep that below 65%. Anywhere from 45 to 65% is really, really good. Anything above 65%, I start like, you're talking way too much. Yeah. Matt's interactivity, my God, Matt's interactivity is so awesome in this call. It's 3.42. That means that the speaker is changing 3.42 times per minute, right? So Matt's generating a lot of interactivity. And the reason why he's able to do this, so number one, if you guys see the talk ratio bars down here, Matt, so we teach our people to do discovery. Our demos are not 2 hours long. They're about like an hour. This one's 51 minutes, right? So Matt spent let me just put this on mute so it doesn't start playing. Matt spent in discovery, I can see with the talk ratio bars where he ended discovery. He spent in discovery about 14 minutes in discovery. So 14 minutes out of a 51-minute call, that's about 27% of the time that he's spending just in discovery before showing anything, right? Wow. And this is, remember, this is not in the home. This is over Zoom. This is like, we're having a conversation here. They just met. He's doing discovery for 14 minutes out of a 51-minute call, which is great. And then the other thing that I saw that Matt did really great, if you guys look here at the talk ratio bar, so Matt, he generates interactivity within the demo. So one of the things we teach our reps to do is when you're showing a demo, you stop and you say, what about this resonated with you? So that you can generate interactivity within the demo before you move on with the second part of the presentation. You guys can see that right here where Matt stops to ask the customer a question and the customer goes, that's a great question. So we make our demos interactive, right? So that it's not just the monologue. And then when Matt stops the demo, and this is one of Matt's superpowers, is he is so able to use the power of silence, man. I'm going to play a few examples here. But this is like what I love the most about this, because when we teach our reps to show the demo, you say, what about this resonate with you? You shut up. You let the customer ask you a question, because they're naturally going to have questions, right?
Right.
And one of the things that we do at Rilla, we don't like when you go on a software demo, home improvement companies know this. When you jump on a software demo with another company, you're just going to get a rep who's just going to show you all the features about like that have ever been created about this product. If we go to this little widget here and look at your settings, you can set up the page to be light or dark if you want to. Like,
they don't care.
Nobody cares about your features. This,
right.
Like, people care about solving problems. So the way we present our demos is we give them a little bit based on what they showed us in discovery. We show them 2 things, no more than 3. 2 things we show them that the product does really well for them based on what they told us in discovery.
Which obviously you have way more than 3 things you could show them.
But we have a lot on Rilla. We have clips, we have libraries, we have all these things. We show them 2-3 things. That's it. Then we stop. Say, what questions do you have? And then based on their questions, we can show them more stuff.
Right.
One of the things we teach our reps in Q&A, because when the customer is asking you questions about, if you generate an exciting enough demo, the demo's like a trailer. And then you can get into the meat and the potatoes. If you generate enough excitement in the demo, the customer's going to ask you a bunch of questions. When the customer asks you questions, the more you talk per question, the less likely the customer is to ask you another question. So what you want to do when you get into Q&A is you want to play a game of ping pong. So customer asks you a question. Well, what about this? You say that. Quiet. The customer says, what about this? That. Quiet. And Matt does a great job at this. So I'm just going to show a few clips. So Matt finishes the demo, and then he goes like this. The customer asks a question right here.
Wrong. Is it going to separate it in a sense to where, it's letting you know that they're only doing this 16% of the time? Well, would we be able to listen and hone in on those specific instances instead of having to maybe listen to the entire thing, for example?
Yes, exactly. Hit the nail on the head there. So what I can show you here.
So what he's doing there is now that the customer asks a question, he's going to show them an additional thing that he didn't show on the core demo, right? And then he's going to go there. If you look at this example, right? Let me see here. So look at this. This is a perfect question. The customer asks a question.
Yeah.
Matt goes quiet. He answered the question.
So the reps are able to listen to the round, so we can go back through. Are we able to listen to it live or wait for the appointment to be finished? So it takes about 5 minutes for every hour of each conversation. After the 2-hour conversation takes 10 minutes for you to tap in there. I gotcha. Okay. Didn't know if that was something, say they're running into a weird issue, they step outside, they call me, ask me to listen to what the customer is saying because they were confused. I didn't know if that was something I could immediately go back and listen to. Not yet. It is definitely by request heavily from our customers, but it is we're working on. Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
You're conditioning the customer to continue asking you questions.
Do you see what he does? He just answers and then shuts up and he just waits. And then the customer naturally wants to fill in the silence. And so he's like literally forcing interactivity, which keeps the customer so engaged throughout the whole thing because it becomes a conversation. And that's how you can keep your talk ratio low and you can generate such high interactivity.
Which doesn't only apply to software sales. I mean, that absolutely in the home is the same thing. I think I hear sales reps all the time that they just get so into the nitty gritty of every little feature and benefit and warranty and manufacturer and have that come out as a question. Let them start asking you rather than just spewing everything out there that they may not care about.
And it's such a natural thing for me. For anybody who's in sales, we love talking. So for me, this is something I had to train myself of, like, pause. He's so good at that. He just pauses. And you heard it was like a few seconds of him just going like this, right? And then the customer goes like, so he brings up another question. What that does is so elegant. Not only are you generating a conversation with the customer, keeping your talk ratio low, you're keeping the light on them, not on you. You're also able to show the customer exactly what they want because the customer is then guiding the conversation a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you're only answering what the customer needs. I want to play another example, which is so great, which salespeople should do. Where
before you do that real quick, I want to ask Matt, has that just been natural for you? You've always done that? Or is that something you've had to consciously try to remember or train yourself to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's definitely something that I have to train myself to do. And also just the real big part of it is that, like, especially nowadays with so much information from the customer's fingertips, like you can go in so many websites, look at so many videos of Rilla, any software you want, and it's just loads and loads of information. Right. Ads marketing takes care of ads. Like, I see that it's not the sales person's job to be a walking ad. Mm-hmm. Like because you have all that stuff. You can look at the features online. You can see testimonials, etc. And it's like now the kind of the ball's in your court to see, okay, you probably know coming in. You did your research. You probably know all this stuff. And I'm not providing any additional value by just regurgitating what's online. Right. So that's kind of the way I operate.
So you're looking at it more of you're there to advise and give them the information that they're requesting from you, but don't just spew it all out there.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
the opposite of this at Rilla, we in our sales training meetings, we call it Joe Bidening. Like when somebody, like a rep Amir, who I love roasting Amir because he's great. He literally, like his demo that I told him that was so bad, it was like he was Joe Bidening all the time. I literally just comment on Rilla, Joe Biden, because the customer would ask a question, and instead, like Matt would go like one-liner and be like, yeah, the customer says, so how long does it take to review? Matt goes, 5 to 10 minutes after the call, you can review it. The customer goes, oh, okay, so then what about this? And Matt's like, oh, yeah, and then quiet. Amir would have gone, was like, yeah, no, oh my God, man, that's a great question. So listen, like Rilla's great because look, what the processing is doing is the AI is taking the transcription, then it's gonna process that, then it's gonna actually separate the speakers, then it's gonna do the natural language processing, and then you're gonna be able to see it, and let me show you the conversation. Look, it's gonna give you all of this, the sum, and he literally does that, and I'm like, dude, like Joe, it's like Joe Biden. You ask him a question, and he's like,
goes
back
on
in
and
the
on
day
and
with
on.
peppercorn and like my hairy legs and stuff. It just sounds like Joe Biden. And so that's what we call it. So Matt does not do any Joe Biden, which is why this is what I really liked about this call. It was like really high interactivity, and he managed to keep the customer engaged all the time. So
yeah, absolutely. While you get back to the clip, you were gonna
another thing that he did that was so well is so like this is an example of salespeople not like they usually don't do this, and it's such a subtle little thing, and I just wanted to play it for everybody. So look at what Matt does here.
A little bit about the reporting process. So we have alarms in place to make sure the salesmen engage the program before they walk into the house. What do you mean by that?
Matt doesn't understand what the guy's saying, so he says, "What do you mean by that?"
Mm-hmm. He didn't just try to answer it.
He didn't try to answer it. Like because his tempo is like kind of so on point. Like I struggle with this where I want to answer the question quickly. Bang, 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 bang. Matt was like, "What exactly did you mean by that?" So that he can then proceed to answer the question that the customer was actually asking, right? Because if the customer asks you a question which you didn't understand very well and you start answering something else, the customers at the end of your answer, they're going to be like, oh, okay. And they're not going to know what the hell you just said, which is one of my other problems with my other reps, that they would not have done that. They would have just been like, they didn't understand and they just continued to regurgitate a bunch of crap. Mm-hmm. So that's another, like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. Super interesting. One of the parts in this call that I thought was interesting that I'd like you to talk on and maybe coach on or talk about what you would typically do is about halfway through the call, maybe 20 minutes in, a second person jumped in. Not too uncommon in a home. Sometimes we'll have a husband and a wife. Yep. The husband's not there, wife's working from home, and they pop in halfway through. Mm-hmm. What do you do at that point to make sure you engage that second person in the demo, in the discovery call?
So one of the things that we coach at Rilla in software sales, you're not in somebody's home. You're usually doing a Zoom demo. People are busy, right? They're going to take an hour maybe with you. And the sale in software is happening in a conversation when you're not in the room. So what happens after the demo is that buyer leaves. They need to talk to their owner, the decision maker. They need to talk with a team to implement a decision that it's going to impact the entire team. So the sale's happening when you're not in the room, really. And what you're trying to do in the demo is give the person the most amount of ammunition to make the sale for you when you're not in the room, right? Some people who don't do the first call close, know this because they're trying to empower one of the homeowners to be able to sell to the other one when they're not there, which is a very difficult thing, which is why we like to have both homeowners present in the home improvement industry.
Absolutely.
We wish we could have everybody present in the same time. It's just not possible to do in B2B sales. So when a second person joins the call, that's like when you're doing a multi-person demo in software, that's the one time that we actually get to maybe see the conversation that's going to be happening outside of the room, in the room. Because if you have people that are going to be involved in the decision in that call, the best thing you could hope for in the multi-person demo is that then those people start talking to each other about the product. And then they start debating and pontificating about how to implement it and then somebody raises an objection and the other person answers it, and they just start having literally the conversation that was going to happen with you outside of the room. And now you're just there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Matt didn't get to in this call is that he didn't generate that from the two buyers here. He was doing a really good job at answering questions from one person, but what he should have done is try to bring the other person, the other buyer, into the conversation by generating interactivity with them. If you generate interactivity with everybody and everybody's talking, you make it more likely that they're going to be engaged. And then at some point, they're going to stop talking to you and they're going to start talking to each other. When that happens, you just shut the hell up and you let them talk. Yep. It doesn't matter if they're crapping on the product, if they're saying this product's, crap. You just sit there and take notes and listen, because they're literally telling you the things that you weren't going to be there to see. And so that's the one thing, I would say the one thing that Matt missed in this demo is that he did close this sale, but it didn't close on the first call. And he could have closed it on the first call if he actually generated that conversation.
If he got them talking, understood what their objections were. And
yeah.
I mean, at some point you have to address those, right? You want to let them talk it out a certain amount of time, and then you need to address it.
Absolutely.
And try to go in for closing it.
Well, that's not ideal. Ideal, you want to help one of the parties address the objections for you.
Right.
So you don't want to, because the way it works in software is you need a champion who's going to champion the deal internally in the company.
Get it done.
And if you did a great job in the demo in discovery, you're going to have a champion that's really excited. And usually when these conversations happen, there's one champion and one that's not. That's perfect. Because if you have a champion, man, instead of you addressing the objections, like, well, how my rep's going to feel about this? And the champion goes like, well, I think that we're going to be able to get them over the hump, in a month or two. And then you just sit there quietly. Then you address it, be like, to Mike's point, you know what I mean? He was talking about, Mike, you're totally right. What we've seen with Rilla is that after 2 months, the reps get over the fact. So you're like, so Mike, how are you thinking about implementing it? And you turn it back to Mike.
Right.
And then Mike can go, that's ideal that your champion can do the selling for you.
Yeah, you let them sell the other half. Just like when you're home with a husband and wife, the husband wants it, the wife doesn't.
Yeah.
You just champion him, right? You push him towards
you're
it.
Like, that's my guy.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Were there any other points in this appointment that you saw that you would point out as maybe really good things or things that could be improved on?
So I talked about the really good things. And this is a great, I usually love the calls that are crap so that I can really unpack. I'm like, guys, when we do our sales training meetings at Rilla, it's way more fun than this because I'm like, literally like, what the hell did you say here, man? What are you talking about?
We'll have to have a round 2 live in Rilla for that.
We have to think this is a great call, but there are things that Matt could have improved. So again, going back to the talk metrics, the longest customer monologue is 1 minute and 27 seconds. So what that means is the customer talked without interruption for the longest time for 1 minute and 27 seconds. This is not horrible. It's not awesome. Awesome would be if Matt got this customer to talk more than 1 minute and 30 seconds, right? 1 minute and 30 seconds, that's a great monologue because a monologue would be him not talking and the customers talking. In this conversation, It would have been the two customers talking to each other and Matt just sitting there quietly. If he had generated that, it would have been 2 minutes or 3 minutes of them just talking and, so that's one thing. And then the other thing is the longest monologue. So there's a few examples where Matt, I would say, answered the question for a little bit too long, for like 2 minutes uninterruptedly, where he just spent a lot of time talking. We want to keep, he's not bad. I mean, the minimum long, that you don't want to go, on your monologue as a sales rep, you don't want to go for more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds talking. But if you can get that under 2 minutes, that's really, really spot on. So Matt was a little bit off here because he was 2 minutes and 4 seconds. So if he could have like there was one answer that he gave that was really
It was
long.
a little too long.
If he could have brought that under 2 minutes, that would have been great. So those are like my little nitpicks of this call. That
Interesting. Do you think that translates to in-home sales? What we do for home
1000%.
improvement is you don't want the sales rep talking for more than a 2-minute stretch at a time.
Yeah, you want to. It goes back to the point about talk ratio, and we have this in the Rilla reports now. It is clear. We analyze over 1 million conversations. Talk ratio matters to close. We're about to publish it actually next week, so by the time this comes out, it'll be out there. Time in home and talk ratio matter so much for you to be able to close business, right? So 45 to 65% talk ratio, that's awesome. If you generate a really long monologue of 10 minutes, it's almost like you're watching a YouTube video.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You're watching a YouTube video.
Probably not a very entertaining one either.
But you see what I'm saying? Even YouTube videos, that now they're super short in the attention span.
Yep.
So if you're not generating this like back and forth interaction with the customer, you're spending 10 minutes talking, it's really unlikely that you're going to generate that interactivity. So if your monologue goes long, the longer your monologue goes, the higher the chances that you won't get a really good talk ratio on the call. So, and you see sometimes reps just talk for like 30, like, just, they just talk and talk and
the whole
talk
time.
and
I've looked at Rilla's where it's a 95% talk to 95 to 5, and it's just they just talk the whole time.
And you look at the monologue as when they go to the demo, they don't stop to ask a question to make it interactive. Yep. So they're just like doing a cookie cutter thing. To Matt's point, it's like you're not giving an ad. You're trying to make it personalized to the customer. You're trying to engage them in the conversation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not a movie. It's a conversation.
Right.
So make them interact. You know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple clips I wanted to play and listen to from here, talk through a little bit, get your kind of understanding and take on them. If they were good things, bad things, indifferent things. So we're going to start with one. I classified this as kind of the building value, but it's also a bit of where you're finding the pain and trying to show the ROI. So go ahead and play this.
Okay, let's say 2 conservatively, that's 22. We could take 22 out of a classic regular 22-day selling month. So looking at about 480. Does that sound about right per month?
Not really, but we can go with it for now.
More or less.
A lot less.
A lot.
So I want to pause there because I thought that was a key place. He said, not really, we can go with it. I think a lot of reps would say, okay, and just go on with the 480, which is not an accurate number for him, right? But you stopped and just said more or less.
Yeah. So I would actually push back on that. I would say like he was trying to, like Matt was a little bit trying to goad him into saying like, yes, but he should have been like, what do you mean there? Like, oh, what do you mean?
Okay.
Where am I wrong? So that the customer would give him a more specific answer of what was the actual math. So there's a lot of the times that even when you're selling home improvement products, whether you're talking about financing or whether you're talking about, energy efficiency and cost savings, a lot of the sale, you can actually make a sale based on ROI. We're software, so we're always selling on ROI. We're always selling on ROI. Listen, these windows are actually gonna make the temperature in your home a little bit warmer, so you're not gonna need the heating system as much, or you're not gonna need the cooling system as much, and so you're gonna save on energy efficiency. And then you start going, and it's really important when you're doing math, to do ROI, that the customer's with you.
Right.
And that you are aligning on what is the reality of the mathematics.
Right.
I remember coaching Matt on the math so much early on. It's like, no. So like we try to figure out how many ride-alongs are people doing. If the pain point is not that you're not doing ride-alongs, but that you're not you're not graduating enough people from your training class, right? What's the percentage and being aligned, right? So like if I ask you, okay, how many ride-alongs are you doing in a month? And you say 4. I need to ask you, well, how many hours does it take you to do a ride along? And if I say that for you, and if I said, is it 3 hours? And you go, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Even if you say yes, sure, that might not be true. So when I'm trying to present to you the ROI of like, hey, Rilla's going to save you X number of hours in a month.
You don't believe the numbers.
Then we're not established in a real foundation. So me going like, no, but how many hours is it? And then you actually having to think about it and being like, I don't know, actually. Well, give me an example of the last time you went on a ride along. How long did it take you to do that? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it took me 30 minutes to drive there, 2-hour long appointment, 30 minutes to drive back. It was actually about 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does that sound about average for when you go out? Yes. I would think so. I got you to a point where it's like that number.
Committed to a concrete number.
It's really solid. So then I can actually build my case for you. So I would actually say when Matt did the more or less, I don't like that. I like him saying like, what is it then?
Yeah. Well, so I'll continue playing this because he did give an answer. So you got to the end cause end result you wanted. So play this.
A lot less, 400?
So we're sitting right around 300 random appointments a month.
300. Okay, 300. Out of those 300, you see about 3 a week at least. So that's 12 a month. So right now, that puts you at what we call a 4% visibility. So we're here to make up for that other 96% that you don't see. And that's where we come in. So step one. Your reps will talk with customers as usual.
This is the longest monologue,
Yeah,
part,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is what
yeah,
I
yeah,
picked
yeah,
up as like
yeah.
the probably the biggest area for
So,
improvement.
but you
because
see
it
what
was
he
long.
did there. Like the mistake there was he should have, when he's doing the math, right? He should have been confirming with the customer.
Right.
Be like I just like, and he goes, right. You know, he should have been like, okay, so it's 300 appointments per month. Yes. Okay. So you're going to be seeing, how much is like
12 a month.
12 a month. So you're going to be seeing 12 appointments a month because you do 12 ride-alongs, right?
Right.
And he
You're
was
waiting
doing
for the response.
He was doing a good job because a lot of the times my reps would just then say like, oh, so you're at 2% visibility or 4% visibility.
They didn't walk through the math.
And they didn't
of how
walk.
they
He
got
did
there.
walk through the math, so that's great. But I would have paused a little
Yeah.
bit just to say like, okay, so you got 12 ride-alongs a month, 12 divided by 300. You're right around, what is that?
4%.
4% visibility. 4% visibility of your totality because you're only seeing 12 out of 300, right? Yes. Okay. So that's the problem that we want to solve with Rilla. You right now are at 4% visibility. We want to give you the ability to see all 300 appointments 100%. With me? Yes.
yeah.
And then I move on.
Continually, even if it's just a quick pause,
Yes.
it stops you from monologuing. Even if you're
Yes.
just getting them to acknowledge the right, the yes.
And now we're all in the, because
Yep.
and those numbers that Matt said, he could have lost the math there, somewhere.
Sure,
And if
yeah.
he lost the math, then you know what I mean? Then we're not on the same page anymore. You know what I mean? Same thing if you're pitching, like one, you know this, like one of your top reps who now works at First Call Closer, he used to sell financing at the car dealerships.
Right. Yep.
Why are they? They're great at home improvement sales because they're really great with this explaining the financing,
Understanding the
with
numbers and the
and
details.
getting people to understand like how much is actually going to come out of pocket. So that's really critical, making people understand the math and everybody being on the same page with the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So as we get towards the end of the appointment here, we talked about a few different things in here, but how important is it when you imagine it's not going to be a first call close? Most of yours are not first call.
Yeah.
One call closes. What needs to be done in order to set it up for a successful second call close? Matt, what would you say?
Yeah, just really holding the I guess the prospect accountable, really to okay, like confirming like this is something that you're interested in moving forward. First, like establishing that, right, and being like and knowing what needs to get done for them to make the best decision for their business, right? You always want to guide it towards the best decision, right? Always keep it open, like we're working together, right? I'm not pushing Rilla on you. This just may not be the best for you, but it sounds like, I'll confirm, like it sounds like you're interested. I guess what would need to happen for you guys to either move forward or make that best decision, and getting those concrete steps is super important. So then you can hold each other accountable. I'll be sending you information. You'll be bringing this to who, like, and what do those conversations look like, and getting all the details of exactly what's going to happen between now and that next call is probably, yeah.
And how important is getting that next call set while you're on the first one?
Absolutely necessary.
I mean, if you don't, do you sell those deals?
No,
it's very difficult from that point.
If you don't have it set right away,
Absolutely,
which I think relates really well to a lot of companies. If you have a one-legger, they won't necessarily try to close the one-legger at the first call. They'll set that second call. But I think companies don't take it far enough that have that mentality. They say, oh yeah, the office will give you a call back and they'll reschedule the appointment. And that's where they never sell them. Where the successful companies that make that work do what you guys are doing here. They say, okay, when's a good time that your husband will be home?
Yes.
I'll be back tonight at 6 o'clock and we'll go over all the options then.
Well, and so that's just one piece. That's just, to me, like if you're going to work at Rilla, you have to set next steps and book a follow-up appointment. That's the very basic piece. What Matt was saying was like, you have to take that further than just like establishing a next step. What you want to do with the buyer, because remember, the sale is going to happen with you outside of the room. So you want to put yourself in a position of influence as much as you can in that conversation when you're not in the room. So how do you do that? That's where you ask them about next steps. We have a whole process. It's like, okay, Mr. Buyer, you're interested in, it sounds like you're interested in Rilla. I mean, it's not a great fit for everybody, but based on what you saw on the demo, it seems like it's a great fit for you. And it seems like you're excited. We already talked about pricing. We already talked about everything. Seems like it'd be a good fit for you. We talked about the ROI. It's going to bring you millions of dollars because let's go back to the ride-alongs. You know what I mean? It's going to give you visibility. So it seems like it's a great fit for you. What needs to happen from this point moving forward before we actually, make a decision to move forward with Rilla? What needs to happen from your end? The buyer goes like, oh yeah, we just got to talk to Bob.
Talk to the CEO.
Talk to the CEO. Okay, once you talk to the CEO, what happens then? After we talk to Bob, we need to make sure that it's going to be all good with our salespeople. Aha, now I found another thing that I need to, you
found the roadblock that's going to come next because we're
going to have to talk to our lawyer to make sure that the legality and got it. And what happens after, let's say everything clears up. At that point, it's just going to be a matter of showing the cost versus benefit analysis. Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. Yeah, because right now we don't have budget and stuff like, and then you start finding out. That's such an elegant thing because what it does is it does three things. One, it allows you to book a next step, which is critical so that you're top of mind and it's not just going to get fumbled, right? It's people get busy. People forget things, right?
100%,
they wanted to do it, but then they forgot it, so they're not thinking about it. So you book the next step. Super important. That's minimum.
Is there a time frame?
What?
Is there a time frame you need to have it booked within?
Like within the week? You don't want to go more than like 2 weeks within the week.
Yeah, definitely.
So so you book the next step. The second thing you do is you start uncovering the objections that haven't happened yet. The objections that are going to happen without you in the room. Objections about the reps, objections about budget, and you still have your buyer there in front of you. So you still have time to help them. You know what I mean? Fine tune that process because again, they're going to help you make the sale so you can help them. It's like, you're going to talk to the reps. I can help you with that, right? I'm the expert here. I can help you talk to your reps. If you didn't ask the question, you have no idea.
You wouldn't know that was going to be the next thing.
The third thing that happens, which is so elegant, is you allow the buyer to literally outline the buying process for you. Not only are they outlining it for you, they're outlining it for themselves. So you're literally forcing the buyer to imagine all of the things that they need to do in order to buy this product, which they hadn't done before. Nobody's thinking about like what are the steps that I need to take.
They saw something cool, signed up for a demo, and that's where they ended.
Once the buyer outlines that process for you, he's outlining them, and now it's like, I have a plan.
Yeah, I have my roadmap now.
It's not you who came up with the plan. They came up with the plan. And now what Matt was saying is holding them accountable. Now you both have a plan that is both accountable. So let's say that the buyer doesn't follow the plan. Now we can focus like, hey, what happened here? What happened? I thought we were going to have a decision made by 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. What happened? Did something fail on this step? Did something fail on this step?
Because you know where the steps are.
Because you know where the steps are. So you give the buyer, literally give them you help them create a roadmap for actually going through the decision. Without the roadmap, the decision is just random. This is they're not gonna do it. So for us, next steps is super critical.
No, it makes a ton of sense, and I think there's a lot of actually opportunity left on the table when we look at in-home sales with not doing that. I think a lot of times have the mentality of we have to give it 150% while we're there because when we leave, there's nothing else to be had. Where I wonder if somebody tried to change that mentality and rather than burn the lead, try to set a next step and hold them accountable to it, would it result in sales in the home? I don't know.
I would, if you guys, we're going to have them soon on the Rilla podcast. Hello. We're going to have you on as well. But I'm not going to talk about his numbers. But Jeff from Houston Window Experts, he's one of those
does that type of process.
And my God, his numbers are just they're just so crazy good. His numbers.
I would imagine so. That's how people want to buy. Why are we trying to force them to buy in a way that's not natural?
It works on the first call, but if you can't get it, they'll get it if they can. But if they can't, they have a whole process of how do you actually do a proper follow-up with a customer, where for us in software, we have to do it. There's just no way that we're never going to get very few.
You're not going to get 50% first call close rate.
We just can't do it. So we have to naturally, and for us, 80% of the sales are happening in the follow-up. 80% of it. You know what I mean? Like, and then you have to send the materials, follow up, and you have to like check in with them. There's like a whole thing that we do in software sales, like multi-threading. You have to like, talk to this person, talk to this person, talk to this person. Like you have to outreach on phone, text, email. Like then that's 80% of the sale. If you did great in the demo, then you have the chance to sell. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the next steps is the beginning of that. So you better have when you outline the roadmap for everybody, then your multi-threading, your follow-up process becomes so tight because then you know exactly what to, and it just gets more complicated the larger the deals. If you're selling a multi-million-dollar deal, which we sell at Rilla, that's going to take in a whole, you know what I mean? You're going to have to talk to so many different people. If you don't have a plan, you're screwed. You know what I mean? There's no way.
No, I think that it's really interesting, and I'm definitely going to consider that more and see. I'd love to talk to that guy that's doing that type of process and find some people that dive into that, because I think there's a lot of missed opportunity in this industry that is not embracing that type of philosophy of, if we don't sell it on the first call, maybe that's okay. But let's have a process set up to do it on the back end. It takes a lot of work, but anything worth doing takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
Well, cool. Matt, any final thoughts for us on not either this call or just anything in general for people out there selling every day?
Yes. My biggest learnings, thoughts of, just working my way to be a top performer is that, really care about the people that you're speaking with, have everything that you say on a call, every decision you make, always be filled with empathy, right? So, and that's just like how we were talking about how, pausing during the call, it's like you have to realize someone is busy. No matter at your call to them, when you're scheduling a demo with someone, you have to realize that's always intrusive, right? And that you want them to realize that they have to make the most out of their time. And by, like, as a sales rep, like we were talking about the talk ratio, right? It's like whoever's talking is going to do the selling. And I think like the silver lining here is that you want them talking more, because they rather do the selling. Like when people say they like to buy, but they don't want to feel sold to, they are let them make the decision to buy, right? So I think that's kind of where I want to leave things off on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, Sebastian, on your end, if you had to leave one piece of nugget for sales reps out there, whether it could be software, home improvement, people in the home, what is one thing that, based on all the millions and millions of conversations and analytics, that they could change, somebody could change and have a big impact on their close rate and what they're selling?
Yeah. There's a lot of things. Of course
there is. Of course.
I'll pick one, which we were talking a little bit about, which is process. We're going to be publishing this in the Rilla Labs in a few weeks. Every single time that we do an analysis, whether it's, for window sales or bath sales or kitchen or roofing, any industry that we've looked at this, it's the same. It's like people who follow process have higher average tickets. They have higher close rates, right? There are diminishing marginal returns. So you see that some top performers, they tap out of like 70% script process compliance. So they're not 100%, but they did do that to get there, right? You know what I mean? They did do that to get there. They started following process like Matt. Like now he's able to he's like kind of like a trained boxer, and he's able to like see the situation before it comes. So he's being able to be creative, but you can't deny the value of having all that process beforehand. You know what I mean? So a lot of people say, I don't want to sound scripted. I don't want to sound, you know what I mean?
Robotic.
There's literally a 0.5 correlation. So it's like a 50% correlation, people don't understand it, between following the process and increasing your average tickets and your sales. We've seen companies, it's like the average ticket, we did one analysis for home remodeling in general. It's like and the numbers are going to be published, so it might be slightly off. The average ticket of companies, the average ticket of companies who had higher than 50% script compliance, which we measure on Rilla, like how closely are you following your system, right? Their average ticket was like $23,000. The average ticket of companies who have less than 50% script compliance was about $11,000 in home remodeling. So that's like, and I wanted to talk about this one because Matt is an example of that, hey, I don't know anything about anything, but I got through because we coached on this process. we fine-tuned it, we executed, and it takes work. It's not just like, oh, I know the process, I know the script. It's like, when it's game time, go back and review the game film to see what parts of the process. Without the process, Rilla doesn't. You can't even use something like Rilla. It's
useless then.
It's like it's like Phil Jackson reviewing game film without having a game system and saying like, you should have stood here instead of there and passed the ball over here. The triangle offense, right? So the biggest thing for sales reps that I can give you right now, it's like, make sure you're putting everything you can into making that process super ingrained, that it becomes secondhand nature for you. The only way you're going to do that is go back and review the game film, review the people that are doing it. And it's really going to pay dividends. I can tell you from an anecdotal example, people at Rilla, we use Rilla on our own. We use Rilla at Rilla.
Obviously.
Matt completes about 270 virtual ride-alongs a month on Rilla. So he's reviewing 270 appointments. I'm doing about 260. So we're both using Rilla to review all of our calls, right? And we keep everybody tied to the process. We coach on process. We don't coach on like outcomes. We coach on process. Matt's close rate when he used to sell was 42%. Our average is 40. That's our average, as a team.
As a company.
As a company is 40. So he's the top performer at 42. The average is 40. The bottom rep at Rilla is closing at 37%.
That's unheard of.
I
mean, that is a tight ratio.
So if you want to get,
awesome.
and not just for sales reps, but for owners and sales managers, if you want to get repeatable results, then get a repeatable process and make sure that you coach to that. And so, yeah, that's the one thing I'm going to
That's awesome. With. Absolutely. Process. It's key. Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, man.
And we'll do this again.
Yes,
absolutely.
sir.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.